Hi everyone, so this is question 11, tutorial sheet 2. So I had solved this question previously and the solutions are on the channel, but there are just some steps which I missed out, which are very cardinal, they are very important and you need to know them. This is the reason why I've come back to resolve question B and question D. I want you all to participate. I want you all to see what I'm going to be doing here on question B and question D. So it's very important. Let's start. Okay, so I'll start with question B. Yeah, the solutions that I sent earlier, they were just correct, though there are just some steps that you need to also take note of. Question B is saying tan squared x is equal to 3. So you remember what I did in that question. I said you square root both sides, but I forgot to put a plus or minus in front of this square root. So it's very important for you to put that. So we're going to have tan x being equal to plus or minus the root of 3. So this is going to be your, this is why now you have to take it up from where you say tan x is equal to, it's going to be positive root 3, or tan x will also again be equal to the negative of root 3. So this, the negative root 3. So now this implies that we're going to find tan x with the positive of root 3 and tan x with the negative of root 3. So the first part here, I'm going to take first this part and then I'll go to the other part that side. So the first part here, I know to say if tan x is positive, we know that there are 4 quadrants that we have here. Then here only sign is positive, their tan is positive, their cos is positive. So what you do is you check which quadrant is tan positive. Of course it's the first and the third quadrant. So we know to say this question that we're going to be solving lies in the first and the third quadrant. So let us find the value of x. So the value of x will just be tan inverse of the root of 3. So tan inverse of the root of 3, you get your answer to be 60. So 60 degrees is your answer. So in the first quadrant, your answer or your value of x will be equal to the same 60 degrees. But in the third quadrant, your value of x will be 180 plus 60 degrees, which gives you 180 degrees plus 60 degrees, which gives you 240 degrees. So your value of x is equal to 240 degrees. So these are your values of x. We are done with the first part. Let us also deal with the second part here. So since we have our argument here, or our tan x to be negative, we know to say tan is only negative in the third quadrant, in the second quadrant, and in the third quadrant, tan is negative. So we are going to find our value of x first, which is just going to be the same 60, where I say tan inverse of And actually here, when you change your value here from positive to negative, you change also the theta here, the symbol that is symbolizing your theta. So you say tan inverse of the root of 3. I've changed it to positive. So my alpha is going to be 60. So now, since my alpha is 60, my alpha is not the answer. I've been told to find x and not alpha. So what you do is, you say, since tan lies in the second and the third quadrant, you say in the second and in the fourth quadrant, you say in the second quadrant, your value of x now, we're finding x, the value of x will be equal to 180 minus 60. So 180 degrees, then minus 60 degrees. So from there, you find your answer now to be 120 degrees. So this is your answer. And then now in the fourth quadrant, so in the fourth quadrant you also find your value of in the fourth quadrant you also find your value of x. Your value of x in the fourth quadrant is going to be equal to 360 degrees minus 60. 360 degrees minus 60, meaning your value of x will now be equal to 300 degrees. So now in writing your final answers, you look at your domain that has been given. You're saying your answers should range from 0 to 360, meaning all the answers that were found are qualifying to be part of the answers. So you write now your answers here. So your answer, you write them. So the value of x, you write starting with the smallest angle. Your values of x will be 60 degrees. You move on from 60, you move to 120 degrees. From there, you move to 240. And then lastly, you move to 300 degrees. So this is your final answer. So for those of you who downloaded this video and saw how I solved this question, I only found two values, which is 60 and 240. I forgot to find the negative square root of tan x. So you can correct that one. Yeah. But on YouTube I've already done the correction. Okay. So let us try also to solve D. Let's see how we can solve D. So D is 2 cos cubed x minus cos x is equal to 0. So here what you do first, you factorize. I've just taken this cos to the other side. Then here what you do first, you factorize. You're going to factor out cos x since it's common, so that we remain with cos squared, there's supposed to be a 2 here, cos squared x minus 1 being equal to 0, like that. So here we can say either cos x is equal to 0 or cos or 2 cos squared x minus 1 is equal to 0. So here you find your x to be, when you find the cos inverse of x, you find your value of x to be, so the cos inverse of 0, you find it to be 90 degrees. So this is your cos inverse of x. And then this side you are going to have something like this. When you make your cos squared x your subject, you're going to have something like this. By the way, here you know to say cos lies in the first and in the fourth quadrant. So in the first quadrant here you find your cos to be, so in the first quadrant you find your value of x to be the same 90. So your value of x in the first quadrant is the same 90, and then in the fourth quadrant the value of cos is equal to 360 minus 90, which the value of x is equal to 360 minus 90, which gives you 270 degrees. So the value of x is equal to 270 degrees. So we're done with the first part this side. Let us also write the second part this side. So here again you find the square root. Of course this side it will be plus or minus. This square and that side will cancel. Then you remain with cos x being equal to plus or minus 1 over the root of 2. So when you find your values of x, so in short, first you split these two. You say you have one of your cos x being positive, and then the other one will be negative. So this one will be 1, the positive 1 over root 2, and then the other one, I'll cut there, the other one will be negative. So cos x is equal to negative 1 over the root of 2. So having done this, you can find now the values of x. This side the value of x is cos inverse. You find cos inverse of 1 over root 2. You find your x to be 45 degrees, and since it's positive, meaning it's in the first quadrant and in the fourth quadrant. So in the first quadrant you find your value of x to be the same 45, and then in the fourth quadrant you find your value of x to be 360 minus 145 minus 45. So this is 360 degrees minus 45 degrees, which gives you, is it 315 degrees. So we move on to this part. You find your alpha. Your alpha is just cos inverse of the positive of that. 1 over the root of 2. Of course, your alpha will also be 45 degrees. But now let us look at the quadrants. Cos is only negative in the second and in the third quadrant. So in the second quadrant, you find the value of cos. In the second quadrant, the value of cos, the value of x will be equal to 180 minus 45. 180 minus 45, which gives you 135 degrees. That is your value of x in the second quadrant. And then in the third quadrant, your value of x, in the third quadrant, your value of x gives you 180 plus 45. So you get your value of x to be 225. So 225 degrees. And hence now you list your final answer there. You say, therefore, my values of x are as follows. So you start with the smallest one, which is 45. And then we have 90. We have 45 degrees, 90 degrees. Then from 90 we have 135 degrees. Then from there we have 225 degrees. Then from 225 we have 270 degrees. From 270 degrees we have 315 degrees. 315 degrees. So these are the values of x that you're supposed to find on the on question D, on question 11, the specific D. So these are the values of x. So make sure that if you downloaded that video where I solved these questions, make corrections. Yeah, actually the answers, the solutions were just okay, but I just left out the other parts of the solution. So thank you very much for watching the video. See you in the next tutorial video. Make sure that you don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out even on the videos that I'm going to be posting. Shalom.